Welcome to It's What Our Characters Would Do, the podcast where a neutral good ranger and a chaotic neutral warlock talk about RPGs, roll funny dice, and give away some sweet loot. I'm Bob World Builder.
And I'm Grace World Destroyer.
And today we're talking about... We're just rolling. No. Oh my gosh.
I won't do what you tell me.
Now you gotta pick that up. Too chaotic. Anyway, what are we talking? We're talking about animal companions and familiars because this topic was selected by the Patreon Discord. I should say Patreon and YouTube members. So those would be technically YouTube members of the main channel, Bob World Builder. I don't think I have the membership stuff set up on the Bob's RPG radio channel yet. But yeah, if you become a member or a patron, you get pretty much lifetime access to the Discord. So yeah, you're good to go. And today, we are giving away a Only Crits dice set from their Little Friends collection. I just thought this was fun because of the topic. It has little chicks and chickens in them. And it's actually an 8-piece set of dice. So it's like your standard RPG 7 plus a big D20 with a big chicken in it. But first, Grace, how you feeling today?
I feel like I wish I had a familiar.
Yeah.
To help me at work.
Yeah, what would your familiar do at work?
You know, all the little filing tasks and dealing with people's sensitive medical information. You know, normal stuff that you would entrust to a familiar.
Sure. You know, I'm thinking about that right now. Classical wizard or witch familiar, they are just helping with little tasks.
Yeah.
That's really what they're for. Maybe like spying and stuff too. Maybe some secretive stuff. But generally, they're just a little assistant.
I think little tasks is mostly in the homunculus category.
Okay. I feel like homunculi fall under this discussion, though.
Yeah, they do.
They're not necessarily a
there's
familiar.
There's just like a special... In
close.
rules is written, there's like a special thing that you need to get. You need like a book of how to make a homunculus, or maybe it's like a spell or something. I don't remember.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know the exact like real lore behind that, let alone even the D&D lore. Slips my mind a little bit. But I know there is, like you're saying, a special process for creating homunculi. However,
much like there is for golems.
Right. Because I think that's the thing. I'm imagining that they come from pretty much the same folklore. I could be totally wrong about that. But a homunculi, I think for D&D purposes, we can just say is a construct familiar. Right? Like you can have other kinds of construct familiars.
I think homunculi is plural. Homunculus.
Right, you're right. Yeah.
It's one single homunculus.
A homunc.
Yeah.
A little clay man. We'll just go with that. Do they have wings usually?
They do have wings. Also, I don't think they're clay.
What are they made of?
I don't know.
You gonna look it up?
I want to look it up.
They don't call them homunculi for nothing. All right, wait. Before you look it up, what do you think they're made of?
I know it involves like the blood of the caster of
Really?
the creator. Yeah, to like bind you together.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know if they're actually sculpted of anything or if they just kind of become existing.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I can say that when I wrote a homunculus monster for the Goodman Games Dungeon Denizens book, it was supposed to be specifically like a vampiric homunculus. And I did include blood and just said that they were usually made of clay and mentioned other ingredients.
Yeah, clay, ash, and mandrake root. And blood.
Okay.
So we're both right.
Okay. Gotta have a little blood in there.
Yeah, just a little blood.
I mean, now that you're looking stuff up, just out of curiosity, check out, 5e Find Familiar and see what those components are for that. I doubt it mentions blood.
It is incense worth 10 GP.
Oh, yeah, burned in like a golden...
by the spell.
Right?
Yeah, and it has to be burned in a brazier. But the value of the brazier is not... No blood.
Oh, well, this is just for Find Familiar.
Right.
True.
I am looking up how you create a homunculus in 5e.
We're kind of getting right into the topic. Did you want to say more about how you felt today? Just really want a familiar
or a homunculus.
You know what? I'm feeling that too. Because even like this week, I've been thinking, just to bring this back. I was feeling really productive this week, and I think I'm getting a lot done. But part of that
more
involved,
done if you had a homunculus.
well, yeah, because literally part of that involved yesterday I literally just worked an extra 4 hours.
Yeah.
Because generally speaking, listeners at home, I've been getting pretty good at now just doing like an 8-hour day and then using, free time in the evenings and on weekends to read more about games, just like for fun and not, quote unquote for work, right? There's always a weird blurry line with that kind of thing when with a fun job, whatever you want to call this. There's always some weird line between like what's for work, what's for fun, what starts out for fun, but then immediately just becomes like research for a video, as it tends to go. And so recently, I've been like the past couple of months, I've been pretty good at that, having a better work-life balance. But yesterday, I was just really in the zone, really like motivated, and I literally worked 12-hour day, but I got a lot done, and I'm like kind of getting ahead of the game with stuff. But all of that would be better if I just had a little guy.
Just a little guy.
Made from a little bit of blood, some clay, a little mandrake root, some ash, bingo bango.
I'm getting worse at
You can make
my
social media
work-life
posts.
balance. Like, I just took a work phone call
Right.
after I got
At
home.
like 5:30 p.m.
And then I was mad about it for like 20 minutes.
Yeah, just gotta not even answer that phone.
Yeah, because the thing is that I used to be the assistant, and now
Right.
I've been promoted, and now I need my own assistant.
Yeah. So you need to tell your boss, hey, if you don't provide an assistant,
I'm going to make
gonna have
one
to
out of
take this into
blood,
my own
mandrake root,
hands.
clay, and ash.
like any sensible person would.
Yep.
Comment below if you feel like you could use a familiar too. I feel like a lot of folks these days could use just a little extra help, That's how I always feel. Honestly, it's that part of that not a hedonistic treadmill, but there's some other treadmill metaphor here because I always feel at the end of a week like, if I had one more day, I could have gotten done everything I wanted to get done. And then even on the weekend, I'm like, if I had like another day or another like half a day of weekend, I'd feel really like perfectly well rested. But it's not true because if I had those extra days, I would just fill it the same way, I'm sure.
We need a 9-day week. 1 extra weekday, 1 extra weekend day.
What I need is just universal basic income. UBI will be the name of my familiar.
Then I wouldn't have to work, and I could be your
we'd still
homunculus.
work. I mean, honestly, I don't know. Maybe we could get away with you just becoming a content creator then as well.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I've been thinking more about that lately because of like all the AI stuff just being developed so crazy fast. But there's no way any kind of government assistance for all these jobs that are going to get taken over will happen fast enough.
I don't think an AI could do my entire job. I think a lot
I think
of
that's
it
how
could
it is
be
for
for
most
sure.
people. Yeah.
But
you can handle like a lot of tasks, but not everything. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, now we're getting really off topic. So we should circle back and at long last just do our little quick build where for what do I say here? Where we try to summarize the topic/goal for this episode in 3d6 words or less. And I'm pretty sure I rolled it last time. So why don't you go ahead?
I feel like we haven't done a podcast together in like 2 months. So.
Well, it was because the last one was just me, and I don't think I even did this little segment, of course. But I'm pretty sure the one before that, I think I did it in the last one. Oh, so I'm still going to roll for you. Okay.
Yeah.
Or should I just shake the dice from side to side?
It makes the same sound.
No, it doesn't.
It does too.
Whatever, I'm not going to test
Listeners, comment below. Does it make the same sound?
Do you want me to compare them? Anyway, I rolled 12.
Okay. We're gonna talk about little buddies and pals and friends.
What? You got 2
Or
more
spells.
words. For spells?
Yeah, they do
Okay.
spells.
Oh, yeah, sure. Okay, fair enough. I'll take it.
Most people just use them to
That was gonna
constantly scout ahead 50 feet.
Right.
I want to open with that. I hate that.
Yeah.
I don't like doing it. I don't like when players in my games do it. it's annoying.
Yeah, just the
It's
seeing
just,
through their eyes.
it's like, why am I building a dungeon and putting all these like neat little traps in? And like, yeah, I know it's a feature of your thing, but you're just going to send a drone ahead of you that's just going to either disengage it by walking through it or just like see it. And then you're not using your own like actual skills.
Yeah.
And you know, like the rogue who doesn't have a familiar, whose job it is to find traps and disengage them. Now that rogue doesn't get to use that ability.
Yeah, that's a really... Is that... Anybody with a familiar can do that? How does that work?
Yeah, any familiar, you can see through their eyes. And for...
So that's like part of the Find Familiar spell. It just mentions it.
Yep.
Okay.
And for warlocks who take Pact of the Chain, they can make that ability even stronger by like making it from any distance.
Right. And I want to say I forget how like the dark vision is supposed to work, but don't the warlocks? I think they just like automatically get it or something. I could be making that up.
Yeah, I think the familiar might have to have dark vision.
Yeah.
But most people are going to choose an owl because that is the best familiar.
There are some ideal familiars to choose from in 5e. And I think the owl's like number one.
Yeah, because it does flyby.
It has this superior dark vision.
Superior dark vision, do flyby. So in combat, it can
like escape release.
It can disengage as long as it like makes no, I don't remember exactly what it is, but it's basically unattackable. Yeah.
And I mean, and to maybe segue into some of our experience with familiars, I was thinking about this before. I've only played one character with an animal companion, and I think run 3 groups, or at least 3 like PCs that were of players in my group who had them, and one of them chose owls, and that would have been Dan playing Omira the Strange, who had like an owl familiar.
But then some owl companions. Or maybe
started with an animal companion and then learned the Find Familiar spell later.
No, it was the familiar first and then an owl companion.
Yeah. It was kind of this cool thematic thing. And I don't think we really I don't know if we played like any dungeons in that game, to be honest. I feel like it was a lot of outdoor and overland stuff. It didn't last super long.
I kept trying to steer us toward where I thought there might be a dungeon, but we never actually went there, so...
Yeah. So he didn't get to, spy cam through the whole dungeon.
But the same person is the culprit of Druid turning into a rat and then scouting an entire dungeon, which I also did not enjoy.
Yeah. So that's a good point. It's not only familiars, but the Druid can do that too very easily.
Yeah.
Hey, they even did that in the D&D movie.
Yep. You just won't catch me doing it as a player.
Well, what did you transform? You're a druid in the thing we just played. Didn't you just use this for something?
Oh, I did turn into a spider to like look around an inn, but I wouldn't scout a whole dungeon like that.
Yeah. I don't know. I haven't run into familiars as a problem in my games. I think the only time that it's maybe been a little bit of a potential problem was with a character who is an artificer, and then the familiar is like very powerful. It's kind of like having an underpowered second character. Like Battlesmith, maybe?
Yeah, that sounds right. But your whole class is about having that then, and like...
Yeah. So that's... And the player like did it, I don't know, not in a way to be overpowered. Like it was just cool, and it worked super well. But I was saying that was just like the case where it kind of could have happened. But yeah, I never got any complaints from anybody, and I didn't find it to be a problem.
Yeah. I just wish that more people, at least who I've played with, use their familiars as familiars. And not
little guys doing
just for little guys doing little tasks and less for spy drone.
Yeah. Spy drone or like always distracting the enemy or whatever.
Yeah, that's another thing.
Yeah. It can get old pretty quick.
Yeah.
Because the fact of the matter is it's just really good. And in 5e at least, it's so easy to get them back if they die.
It costs 10 gold, but yeah.
Sure. That's not a problem. And it's, I want to say, a ritual spell too. So
it is, yeah. So it never costs a spell slot.
Yeah.
Because it already takes, I think, 10 minutes anyway. So you're not doing it out in the field.
Well, that's true. I guess I wouldn't be surprised if it's a spell that takes an hour to cast, but I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah.
It could be an hour of time, but it's like you do that during a short rest. You can do that as part of a long rest even. So it's like you literally can get your familiar back every single day.
As long as you have
or more than
the money and the material. You do have to like go buy the materials. Quote,
yeah, but that's another thing that if we were to poll 5e players, how many people are actually tracking the spell components for Find Familiar? Like, come on. 10% of people? I don't know. Could be a lot more. Again, I haven't had a lot of people playing familiars in my game, and like I said, in that one case, it was more of a construct anyway. I don't even know if that's related to the Find Familiar spell with the Artificer. With Dan's character, I don't know if the owl ever died because it was an owl, and then the only other character that I ran for, like I'm the GM and a player had an animal companion, that's the thing, it was a companion, not a familiar, and it was Steven playing Varys, who had his little bear named Ursa, who ended up dying, actually.
Yeah, pretty early.
Yeah. But you know what? Consequences.
Yep.
And it's not like he was using it irresponsibly.
No, it was fighting and it died.
It was fighting and it died.
Yeah.
In the same battle as Elmira, I think, actually.
Yes.
Dang.
I've had 2 familiars. 2 characters with familiars.
Yes. Tell us about this. Your second favorite one first.
So my second favorite one was Delilah, the half-orc blade singer. She had so originally it was a swallow, which fit her aesthetic very well. The second time I played her, there was another character that like had a pet rat, and this character like felt that they couldn't take good enough care of the rat, so they gave up their pet rat to a temple. So Delilah made her familiar into something that was part owl, part rat.
Like a pigeon?
And its name... No, it was like, it had the wings of an owl, but like, and the eyes of an owl, but like kind of the face of a rat.
Gross.
And like little hands.
Hey, this sounds like a familiar, though. Yeah. Let's be real. If your familiar doesn't have little tiny creepy hands, you're doing it wrong.
Its name was Sweet Bun, and it led a tortured existence, and I like never used it for anything.
Yeah.
I think I brought it out in battle once, but then got bored of constantly just, the rat owl distracts the enemy, and then I follow it with a firebolt, just like all the time.
Yeah, and that reminds me, I don't know, I'm just thinking of the appearance again of the show Cabinet of Curiosities on Netflix, the Guillermo del Toro show, where in the one episode they did, what's the name of the story? It's an H.P. Lovecraft story, and there's a familiar involved. Brown Jenkin, I think was the name of it, and it's just this creepy little, like basically a large rat, but with kind of the face of a monkey or kind of a humanoid face, and it has little hands. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, that's just what I was thinking.
My favorite familiar,
Here we go.
The best one.
More or less the reason we're making this episode.
I've definitely talked about this before,
but not
in the podcast.
Not
on this version of the podcast. Slippery John.
Slippery John. Tell us the tale of Slippery John, Grace.
Slippery John.
Oh, Slippery John
was the familiar of my chain warlock, a great old one warlock named Eye of the Squid.
Yes.
Anyway,
it slipped my mind for a
Slippery John was a blobfish with legs.
Mm-hmm.
That could be either slippery or sticky, depending on his mood.
And just so we give everyone the visual here, if you don't know what a blobfish is, it's the picture that you've seen on the internet of a thing that looks like someone
like a human
tried
face.
to make a weird human face on a fish, but it's kind of Squidward-esque with a very like wide but like flat nose. Yeah.
And that's not what they actually look like in the water.
No, apparently
it's just what happens to them
like
when
decompressed or whatever from atmospheric
But it
pressure.
looked like the decompressed version because it was out of water.
Exactly.
Anyway,
so really ugly meat-colored fish.
Yeah. Slippery John and Eye of the Squid wore matching outfits, which was a yellow rain poncho and a blue pointed hat.
I don't remember Slippery John having an outfit.
Yes,
but okay.
he did. And because it was packed with a chain, Slippery John had a flying speed.
Oh.
So he would just kind of levitate and hover around, and his little legs would like flop behind him as he moved.
Yeah. It was great stuff.
And he could like, I created him myself, and he could like squeeze through narrow gaps like 1 inch. He was completely boneless.
Yeah.
Yep, Slippery John was the best.
Yeah. Well, and then for us, just because he was so funny, it kind of evolved into this whole headcanon about, I don't know, just like that there are legends about Slippery John.
Yes, legends of Slippery John.
And even like what it is and, you know.
Yeah, so
like
I did wind up like writing
legend.
More lore about him.
Yeah.
And it's that he was a member of this race called Shaganun.
Okay.
That worshipped the like warlock patron that Eye of the Squid was like sworn to.
Okay.
Icthagda, the Hungry Ocean, which is like
right.
a pan-dimensional whirlpool. Anyway, the Shaganun just like throw themselves into this whirlpool and get deposited like across the plains, where they seek out warlocks of the Hungry Ocean to serve as familiars. But his main attack was siphoning off psychic energy. So the legend was that, like, if you hear a slurping at your door while you're at sea and you answer it, Slippery John will eat your soul.
Yep. So if you take anything from this episode, take Slippery John.
Yeah.
Take the tale of Slippery John.
Take the tale of Slippery John.
But I think we are ready for a little short rest. So we'll be back in just a minute to answer some questions and read some stories. Now it's time for a random encounter, where we roll to read your stories and questions, generally about this topic, and the person who wrote our favorite story or question takes home the sweet loot. Chicken dice. Go ahead and roll.
3.
3 is from the Diamond Pigman 01. And this guy actually left 2 comments. Both of them seemed like just very straightforward questions, so I just packed them into one question. First, what has been your favorite pet/familiar in a campaign? Well,
Slippery John.
Slippery John for you, for sure. And I think I would have to go with the one that I didn't mention, my own character's one animal companion. Out of all the characters I played, which is really only, I don't know, between 1 and 2 dozen characters, I think I've only had one with an animal companion or familiar, and it was the first character I ever played when we got pretty OP level, like technically level 12-ish maybe, but in reality we're probably like 15 plus because that game was just very overpowered homebrew. We were pretty much all able to buy incredibly expensive like mythical creatures. And my character, Brahm, got a giant flying snake that could just like eat a person whole. And it was pretty great. And I actually have like an art piece of that character with the snake. There's no way to show that in the podcast. Dang. Anyway, it's pretty awesome. And the second question from this guy, from Diamond Pigman, is do you allow players to use the help action through their familiars on themselves?
On themselves.
Like have your familiar help you, yeah.
So, rules as written, you shouldn't be able to. Because the familiar takes its turn immediately after the familiar's master. So, they shouldn't be able to use the help action for themselves.
Unless they were holding their action, right? I don't know.
Well, then I don't know. They would have to like hold their whole turn. I guess they could hold their action for it.
Yeah.
If they did it that way,
in 5e,
it would
you're
work.
not supposed to be able to hold your action and like therefore change your place in initiative. Like I don't think you can hold it past the end of the round.
Well, it wouldn't be holding your turn. It would be I attack after my familiar uses the help action.
Yeah.
And then
Oh, yeah, you would just have to delay yours, not
Yeah.
them delaying theirs all
and
the
you
way
wouldn't
around.
be delaying your whole initiative. You just be delaying your action until after your familiar helps.
Yeah, like you have a set of reaction for like when my familiar helps me do
Yeah.
this. Wow.
That would be.
Oh my gosh.
And that's just so.
It gets so complicated. Like immediately partway through what you were saying there, I just like had this moment, not on you, just of realizing like this is why I'm losing touch with 5e. Like there's just so many little things that the game does have answers for, but because there's an answer written somewhere, I feel like I need to know it. And for me, it doesn't work well with my head. I'd rather just say like, oh yeah, sure. And then realize in game it's too powerful. And then we say, let's not do that anymore.
Yeah.
Like
Out of combat, your familiar can help you with whatever, as long as it has the limbs and the capacity to do so. Otherwise, let your familiar help your fellow
your
party
fellows.
members. Let them get the rogue sneak attack, so someone doesn't always have to be flanking.
Then that's pretty powerful.
Yeah, that is pretty powerful. But at least you're not just using it for yourself all the time,
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that's more of like a positioning thing in general, right? Yeah, that can work, right? I mean, we were saying they should be there to help with little tasks.
Yep.
So in combat, did they specifically ask in combat? Use help? They didn't say in combat, but yeah, in general, obviously familiars should be able to help with stuff, but taking that help action in combat could be a little tricky.
Yeah.
Could be a little much. All right. Roll again.
1.
1 is from It's the Dalton. I ran a 3.5 campaign, and the druid had a black lab animal companion named Poe. For the 2 years this campaign ran, Poe had more confirmed kills and crits than any other party member, and a higher AC than the 2 paladins. She was given scale mail barding. Also, due to my soft spot towards dogs, we decided that if Poe ever dropped to 0 hit points rather than die, she would get frustrated and retire to an archdruid sanctuary where she would be treated with respect. That's great.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's fun. I actually really like that twist on HP for an animal companion.
Yeah.
Because as much as we all kind of know HP is basically like your meat points, truthfully, and people like to bring this up from time to time, it's really just kind of supposed to be this combination of your will to fight and your actual health and, all that stuff together. So for an animal companion who hopefully won't just die, it's flat out, especially if you're not going to give it death saves and go into that, like all the other defenses against death that 5e player characters have. Yeah, sure. Like going to 0 can just mean they flee or something.
Can we do that for my cool wolf companion in the Mines of Phandelver game we're playing?
For our last session of it coming up?
For Scar?
Yeah.
What if I want to bring Scar to Chult?
yeah, we're going to continue with these characters. So, yeah, I don't see why not.
Cool.
There'd probably still be, we'll have to come up with something, like there'll be some amount of time that they have to rest before they're able to adventure again, I think. Like a good 10 days or something like that of resting. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But I like that in general. And I guess this was more of a story. So yeah, I like that. I like that you got armor for your animal companion. That's always something that people want to do, and it's super cool because it just involves this like custom crafting element that doesn't come up often enough, I think, in 5e because there are no rules for it. I think a lot of people just don't think about it. Yeah, and I wonder if they just rolled really lucky that they had more confirmed kills. Oh yeah, and crits, so they must have just been really lucky. And maybe just kind of stealing kills at the end of a combat or something.
Yeah.
Cool. And I like the name, Poe. Anyway, let's roll.
5.
5 is from Slit581. This isn't a funny story, but in D&D 2e, and maybe older editions as well, the ranger had companions, but you had to roll a 1d100 to see what you would get. One of the rolls was another ranger. That made it fun and interesting because then you could have double ranger, and the team, if they were really strong, could be known as the Power Rangers, set out to defeat the ultimate evil that plagues the world. Plus, think of all the implications of happening to roll another ranger, or if the DM was nice and just let you have another ranger. Then the DM could either let you play the second ranger too, or the DM could control them. Heck, they could even betray the party later on, working for the BBEG the whole time. Just imagine the heart wrench.
That just reminds me of one of the familiars you can get in DCC. It's just like a tiny version of yourself.
Yeah, I should have brought this up earlier. DCC has a couple pages, I think, dedicated to how Find Familiar can work. Again, it's all like optional stuff, of course, but most of those pages are just these big tables of how your alignment affects like the different kinds of familiars you can get, general kind of templates for them, and then another one for their appearance, one of which is just, this tiny version of you, which is pretty funny. I think there's a couple I think one is like a tiny like warrior, and there's like there's other tiny things. But I like, that's the very definition of a little guy.
Yeah, just a little guy.
Yeah. Oh, man. I kind of want to, I'm gonna open that real quick, take a peek. Just because I have the book right here. So the spell page itself is actually pretty short, where most DCC spells take up a full page. Find Familiar is only like a half page, and it talks about kind of how the ritual works. But then it says to see page 316 for more information. And then here we have, like 4 pages of tables and options here. But yeah, it starts with types, guardian, focal, arcane, and demonic, and those are kind of based on your alignment primarily, but I guess we were mostly referencing familiar physical configuration and master benefit. So we got options here such as eagle, white cat, brownie, giant bee, extra planar, miniature version of the wizard himself, but ancient in age, is a special modifier there. Tarantula, pixie, wolverine, horned slug, skeletal rat, miniature version of the wizard himself, but young and spry, miniature robed wizard with a cowled face that is never revealed, a turtle. Yeah, a lot of cool stuff in here. And they each have different, benefits, like we said. Oh, and then you can roll for their attitude, like what's their general personality. Okay, we don't have to go down too much of a rabbit hole there. But I just wanted to bring that up because there's cool stuff.
Yeah, something that might make familiars more cool in 5e is if, much like summoning spells, the DM chooses the familiar or it is rolled randomly.
Sure. And actually one other thing that came to mind earlier when we were talking about how easy it is to get familiars back in 5e, I'm pretty sure, I already closed the book, so I'm not going to open it again, but in DCC,
Don't you take a major hit if your familiar dies?
Yes. So when you create the familiar for the first time, your character gains the same number of hit points as the familiar has to your max hit points, I think. Or maybe you don't gain them, but definitely when the familiar dies, you lose that amount from your max hit points.
Yeah.
So I think that's actually it. I don't know if there is the positive in the beginning. I think it might just be the negative that I mentioned there. When the familiar dies, you lose their, whatever their total hit points was from yours. And if you're a wizard or something, that could theoretically kill you. Yep. So it's definitely risky, and it's going to involve, I don't know, that's why wizards have patrons, and there are ways to work around
familiars.
Those things.
I don't think familiars are really for combat in DCC.
I don't know.
They don't fight.
I guess there were some, there's like guardian or whatever. I don't know all the details of them. I haven't looked into it yet. But there's different ways to use them for spell casting and for defense, I think. So anyway, let's roll again.
6.
6 is from Joolo. Not in US, so please don't use me for the contest. But we were playing in a homebrew setting in a post-apocalyptic campaign where everyone else was wary of outsiders. We got to a fortified town that reluctantly let us in due to some lucky persuasion rolls. We went to the tavern to relax and had a really involved RP session. The ranger had a few drinks, both PC and player, and thought it would be a good idea to bring out a friendly critter from their bag of tricks, hoping for a goat or a rat or something. Well, they actually pulled out a wolf. I guess this was like they're able to randomly summon an animal. Everyone in the tavern freaked out. The ranger wanted to right their wrong, so they ran around the tavern trying to capture the wolf, much like a bull in a china shop. It didn't go great. Long story short, the town guard came and all of us got arrested. When we got out, we were always sweating whenever the ranger grabbed for that item. Yeah, letting your PCs randomly summon a random type of animal is an interesting
That
move.
is an item. that exists.
Isn't it like a hat or something?
There's a bag of tricks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I just didn't recognize
And depending
that,
on the
My bad.
color of the bag, I believe, is what kinds of things you can pull out of it, I think.
Well, I like that. It's just going to lead to some shenanigans.
Shenanigans.
Yeah. Roll again.
2.
Okay. From David H. It always feels like a struggle, balancing the desires of individual players to use pets and familiars for scouting, combat, and other hijinks versus the actual rules, as well as considering what is fun or ruins the fun for the individual player versus the other players at the table, including the DM. Sometimes players will want to use them in a way that breaks what the DM has prepared, or in a way that hogs the time and attention away from everyone else. But if you don't allow them to use their familiars, they feel denied and cheated.
Those are all true facts.
Yeah, and I think we touched on some of that. Basically, it's like, yeah, you probably just shouldn't let them scout 100 feet ahead of you through the whole dungeon.
Yeah.
Like, I think I would frankly just be like, no, that definitely ruins the rogue's whole job.
Doesn't it say anywhere in the Find Familiar spell that the familiar always obeys your commands unquestioningly? Because if it doesn't, maybe your familiar doesn't want to scout ahead and they won't do it.
Yeah.
Not
like, if
at
it's
least
supposed to be
it's
intelligent at all.
They might just be like, I'm tired. I don't want to do it anymore. I
Right.
want to ride on your shoulder now.
Or like, I don't want to get murdered every day and resummoned. Like,
Exactly. Yeah. Or, I mean, if it's a warlock and you're like Pact of the Chain and you're just letting your pact boon, your familiar, get murdered every day.
your patron might
How's
be
your
like,
patron
yo,
gonna
what
feel
the heck
about
are you
that?
doing?
I
You're
gave
being
you
reckless.
this. I gave you this nice gift, and
Yeah.
you're just like
Trashing it
killing it.
over and over.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? Let your familiars have some sense of self-worth.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. And if they get killed every day, or
They're like, screw it, I'm out of here.
yeah, they won't be
You
summoned
stink,
anymore.
dude.
Or-
yeah, they won't like come when you summon, or
Yeah.
they'll hate it, right? Or they'll be this reluctant familiar.
Yeah.
I think that's, there's levels to when you would want to implement that sort of thing. But if it seems like a player is abusing the powers of their familiar or abusing their familiar, then definitely, let the familiar behave as a reasonable creature would.
Yep.
If it's smart enough to obey their commands, it should be smart enough to like fear for its life. Absolutely.
I agree.
Anyway, last one from Mr. DeFacia. We once had a plot to steal the hoard of a thieves' guild that hinged on a familiar unfolding a portable hole and shoving treasure into it. It was an imp, so we figured with 2 hands it shouldn't be a problem. Turns out there was a bag of holding in the hoard, causing all our stuff, the thieves' treasure, and the imp got vacuumed into the astral plane when the bag was dropped into the hole. That's pretty good. Dang.
Yeah, because the DM saw that plan and was like,
I don't know.
Too
That's so
easy.
tough, right? I wonder if the DM, like if there was a bag in the hoard already and then they get, what I'm trying to say is if the DM did that after the fact or it was already an established thing and the players just didn't know.
yeah.
We'll never know. But I hope it was not just like a way to screw the players. I guess it's still fun either way, but it's a good plan.
It was a good plan, except they didn't take everything about the plan into account. They didn't think, what if there's a bag of holding in there? They didn't think about the limitations of their hole. You always have to
That's
think
true.
about the limitations of your hole.
Okay. That's another great lesson for this episode. Well, for sharing our favorite story/question, this episode's loot winner is It's the Dalton for super armored, super killer lucky dog Poe. You're going home with the Little Friends chicken dice set from Only Crits.
I wish it was dogs.
Yeah, I don't know. They might have a dog one, but we're going with chickens for this time. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend and roast that like button.
Roast it.
Yeah, just freaking roast
Over
that
an open
stupid like button.
flame.
To be eligible for loot and support this show, consider subscribing or joining Patreon through the links below. Patrons also get a private RSS link to listen to your favorite podcast platform and a bunch of other cool rewards. So thank you for your support and keep building.
No, stop building. Stop.
Jeez. All right.